We are live. Welcome everyone to How the Old West Was live video show. Today we have a special guest from War Ponies production with Kevin Browning. Pause that. Sorry about that. A lot of you already know him. We'll be talking about the history of the Native American way. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited about this. It's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, everyone, how are you?
Well, I hope everything is going to be going really good today. So, the first question that we want to ask you is, we know clothing was a big issue. Tell us about how back in those days they got their clothing.
Well, of course, the buffalo and the elk and the deer and everything was pretty, popular back then. I mean, there was a lot of them. And, of course, they would hunt, and they would cure the meat, and they would tan the hide, and they would make all their clothes out of the buffalo or the, elk or deer or any kind of animal that they could tan the hide from. The buffalo was usually the thickest and the heaviest, where the deer skin was a little bit lighter, more for summer use. They would smoke and brain tan everything, which made it virtually waterproof. And then, of course, later on, they would use, cloth clothes from different trades. They would use the canvases off of the covered wagons that they would raid and steal. They would take the shirts, pretty much right off of their enemy's back and wear them with the blood on them or whatever. Because, they realized that cloth was a lot cooler as well as easier to get and easier to work with than the leather. But then you had some of them, that was hardcore and they stuck with the old ways and would wear nothing but, leather. And, average day-to-day clothing for the Comanche, basically during the summertime, was just a breechcloth for the men. And, but then, of course, wintertime, they would wear leggings and they'd wear, shirts, of course, and would wrap themselves in buffalo robes or elk skins or whatever to keep warm. But that's basically, how the clothing fit and worked. And they were very good, they wouldn't just go down to Walmart and buy something. They'd have to make it. So, if their leggings got holes in them or something, they might have holes in them for a while. But of course, they had plenty of leather to patch with, but sometimes, that wasn't a priority. So, they wore what they had, and they used what they had. So, that's kind of the way it was, back then.
Okay. You kind of want to elaborate basically a little bit about having to adjust my video to here for a second. You want to elaborate a little bit about the areas maybe where they would get most of their clothing?
Well, they would hunt for buffalo and, go on buffalo hunts. They would, of course, use every piece of the animal. They didn't waste them like the white man did, just to kill for the hides, more or less. And, of course, after the buffalo started dwindling down and the animals, where they could make leather and get, tan the hide, they had to go to cloth. They had to canvas and such like that. They would use the canvases, like to make their moccasins or their leggings out of canvas. The shirts, a lot of the shirts were made out of flour sack material called Ozenberg. It was basically a lightweight canvas. But they would, off the southern plains like me, Comanche. Well, there was a lot of buffalo and such back in them days. But then the white men and the buffalo hunters and all came in and started just killing them for sport and leaving the carcasses rot. So they had no choice but to start trading or, stealing off of wagon trains or off of ranches and stuff like that to actually get their clothing. But the women would do a lot of the men would do the hunting, and the women would do the hide prepares. They'd skin them, and they would prepare the hides and scrape them and tan them, using the brain out of the animal that they actually took the hide off of, and different things like that. And they'd rub it until it was it'd thicken the leather, and it would also make it very pliable and very soft. Is the way it worked. They different tribes, used a different style of clothing. Then in the Comanche, they had a certain style of moccasin and legging, but each individual person would probably wear their own thing. It wasn't like they had a uniform and everybody wore the exact same thing. That's the thing about it. When you go see the movies or whatever, you go, you see, say, a bunch of Comanches, and they're all dressed exactly alike, with maybe the exception of a few, necklaces or whatever is different. But basically, in the movies, they've got everybody wearing the exact same moccasin, the exact same leggings, the same breechcloth, exactly the same. And that just wasn't really how it was. Everybody was an individual. They had their basic styles, but they would, have their own style as well.
Right.
If that answered your question.
Sure. I'm pretty sure that there was a lot of controversy in how the Native Americans got their war paint and different hairstyles. Tell us what did they really wear for war paint, and what does it actually mean?
Well, each warrior basically would wear their own face. Like me, for instance, when I dress and represent, I seen my face in a dream actually, and that's the face that I've used since I've started doing the living history and the reenactments. The makeup that I use, of course, is theatrical makeup. At times, I have used the real stuff before. They would make, there's a rock called ochre, and it's got yellow and there's red, and they would actually take that ochre rock, and that would be the red, or they would use blood off of their enemy. The black, they would use mud, or they would use blackberries, and mix it with buffalo talon or bear grease, and make it into a paste, more or less, or a grease paint, and they would paint it on their face. Some say, you see the Hollywood style where they would just have maybe two red lines under their eyes. Well, that wasn't always the case. Each warrior, they might have a bloody handprint or a black handprint on their face, or like me, my whole face is painted with different colors. Clark Parker had a strictly a black face when he'd go to battle. And they would make it, like I said, out of berries, out of mud, out of different rocks that they would grind into a powder, and then mix with buffalo talon or grease, and they would paint it on their face. And basically, it was real. For instance, the black figure is going to battle for death. This is the Comanche culture. I don't know about any other ones so much. But the Comanche, the black figure is going to battle for death. He wasn't afraid to die. The red was the blood shed by you and your enemy. The red, even though they were your enemy, you still respected them because they were warriors. The white, of course, is the beginning of new life. The yellow, if they would use yellow, was for the sun or the moon, to represent life, more or less. The some of them would wear blue. And the funny thing about that, the blue makeup was usually duct tape that they would mix and turn it blue, and they would use that for war paint. I had forgot about that one. I don't think that's why I don't wear blue. But
what is
then,
most...
of course, with my face, it has black, and I have a line down the middle. The red goes from my nose up into my scalp line, and then the black goes from my nose down. The upper is black, one side is red, and the other side is white. And I also have blood teardrops running down my face. And that, to me, that represents your ancestors that died in battle. The battle could mean war. It could mean a disease like cancer or diabetes or anything like that. But that is what that means to me. And that's basically, what you got on the war paint. And it was a fear factor. They would, although everything meant something, it was also, intimidating to see a warrior. I don't know, if everybody looks at my picture there, you can see it's pretty intimidating looking. The hairstyle, the Comanche, every day they would get up. I mean, this was basically kind of a routine. They would take the red ochre rock and they would mix it with the bear grease or buffalo tallow, and they'd smear it all over their body. And that darkened their skin to keep them, it was basically a sunscreen. And they would grease their hair down and they would braid it. They'd grease it down every day with bear talon or bear grease or buffalo grease. And they'd slick their hair down and they'd braid it. Well, when they get ready to go to battle, they'd take them braids out a lot of times so their hair was big and wild. And that was basically it. As time went on, basically the braid went straight down the side. Sometimes they would wrap their hair in otter felts or Nutra or, whatever. And if you've ever noticed Florida Parker, if you've seen pictures of him, when he had his hair wrapped, his hair was almost to his feet. But when you see him without his hair wrapped, his hair was only maybe to his waist. They were pretty much the first ones to go with the stitches because they believed the longer the hair, the more power you had. And they would even cut their hair, take care from their women. They would use extensions from horse tails or whatever or their enemy scalps, to make their hair longer. And it would braid right into theirs. But the braid originally, kind of went over their ears. That would, also protect their ears, from the cold or the heat. And then as time went on, for some reason the hairstyle changed and their braids started going behind their ears. And that was basically the way the women mostly wore it back in them days. But the men, a lot of times, would wear it straight down. Each warrior was different. Not all wore their hair wrapped. Some would wear a buffalo headdress, different things. They got prominent for them to steal hats. That was like a counting coup thing, where they stole the hat off their dead enemy or just run up and stole the hat. And the top hat was very distinguished, for them. The cavalry hat that they would steal a lot of times, or the derby, that was a popular hat back then. And, when they'd steal that, they'd wear it with pride.
Okay.
But the hairstyles over the years, have changed. A lot of the new guys, you see, and even in movies, they've got their hair braided behind their ears. That wasn't the way they wore it, say, back in the 1870s. They would wear it straight down or not even braided. And also the Comanches would wear a top knot. So they would braid a top braid in the top of their hair, and it would kind of come down, and sometimes they would tie, their eagle feather in that, or, tie beads or whatever into their hairstyle like that.
Okay, one of the other questions I want to ask you too is,
sorry.
What when they put feathers in their hair, does it have to be like an eagle, or what? what does it kind of actually represent, the feathers? Is there
Well, the feathers for the Comanche was, say, more a decoration type. They would use, of course, wild turkey feathers. They would use hawk feathers. It was a little more distinguished to use the eagle feather because it was harder to get the eagle feathers and the hawk feathers. But they would, they believed that the feather did give them extra power from the animal. They also believed, that some of the skins that they would wear, like a badger. You think about a badger, the Comanches would wear the badger pelt and stuff in their hair sometimes, or make their bags out of it, because they believed that that animal gave them the extra power that they needed. And if you know everybody that knows anything about a badger, for instance, a badger, weighs 30 pounds and he'll fight a grizzly bear. They ain't scared of nothing. Well, that was pretty much the way the Comanche was. The word Comanche, we refer to ourselves as Numina, which meant the people. But the word Comanche actually came from the Southern Utes. That meant, loosely translated, those who want to fight us all the time. And the Comanches would fight just to fight. They loved it. That was part of their life. They, raiding and fighting and that type of thing. So, that's, I kind of got off track there a little bit, but it kind of gives you the basic answer, what you asked.
Well, that's some really good insight about the heritage of the Comanches. That's really informative information that probably a lot of people don't even know about. I have a picture of you behind me where you have a spear and you're on your horse and that kind of thing. And one of the other questions that I wanted to ask you was, what was the most prominent type of horse used by the Native American Indians?
Basically, it was the Mustang, the Spanish Mustangs, because they were very easy to get. They were running wild because when the Spanish came over, they just turned them loose. And actually, the Apache was probably the first one to utilize the horse and realize that they could use it as a tool. And it was a lot easier it was easier to travel. They would use it to pull travois, which, pulled all their goods and their teepees and everything when they were traveling and moving nomadically. But the Comanche was actually the first one. They became very, very well. They were known as the best light cavalry of any of the tribes. The Comanche was actually the first one to fight from the horse. Most of your other tribes would ride in, they'd get off the horse, and they'd fight on the ground. Well, the Comanches, back in them days, were built a lot like me. They were short, they were upper body, stout, had short legs, which made it very hard for them to, be very agile on the ground, but they learned to ride horses very well, and, they learned to train them. They would put them in the water to gentle them where they couldn't buck, just different things and things. They also developed the medicine hat paint, the Comanches did, which had blue eyes, and a horse built, they was known as a spirit horse. And the eyes, were known as Otsapui, which was crazy eyed. And, but they also, would ride grays, any horse. The horse was a very important tool to the Comanche because it made them more agile and able to do things that they weren't able to do on the ground, and that they were short, like I said, so they could ride horses good. Your average size horse back then, you notice if you see pictures of a lot of the Indians on the horses, it looked like they were all real tall men and long-legged. Well, the truth of it was the horses were small. That's why they was referred to as ponies. The Mustang ponies, because they were short and tough. They'd average anywhere from, say, 10 hands tall to 14 hands. Then, of course, the Europeans started bringing in the bigger warm blood horses and, mix important item too, because the more horses you had, the more you could trade. You know, if a man had 50 horses, you know, he was an important man. When they would say fight for the hand of a maiden or a woman or a young girl, whichever the case be, you know, they would trade. You know, they would give the father 5 or 6 horses per woman, you know, and the more she had, sometimes he'd say, no, she's worth more than that. So, you know, basically he wanted more animals. You know, so that was a very, you know, the Comanches had thousands of horses among them. And when they finally, you know, fought their last battle, the cavalry came in and they shot over 500 of their horses, and gave the other, you know, 500 or so to the Tonka Walls for being their guide, but led them to the Comanche in the Palo Duro Canyon when the last battle was fought.
Oh, see.
You know, the horse, you had the war paint on the horse. You know, the Comanche actually developed the war bridle, which was a braided piece of leather. You'll see them riding with a lot of the Mexican silver head stalls and stuff. But basically, they would use a war bridle which just went in the bottom jaw of the horse. It was also used when they could sneak in to a camp and they could steal a horse. They would put that loop over that horse's nose, put it around his neck, lead him out, stick it in his mouth, or put it around his neck and take off with him.
Okay.
And also the idea of the war bridle was your enemy could ride in and jerk the headstall off of your horse, so you didn't have no control over your horse. You was in that bottom jaw, so that horse basically, you know, they couldn't take the bridle off and where you lost control of your horse. But a lot of the horses back then, the good war ponies, were just like your good trained cutting horses and stuff today. A lot of leg pressure and things, you know, let that horse do the things that he did. It wasn't all about the head control of that horse.
Right.
You know, they controlled that horse with their legs. You know, they say they can hang off to the side. My thinking is, I don't care how good a rider you are, you're not going to be able to hang off the side of a running horse at a full run with just the strength of your legs without a saddle. They would probably use a neck rope, or they would have a surcingle around that horse that they'd run their leg through so they could hang off to the side and shoot, you know, under the neck of the horse or whatever. And I'm sure they took a lot of tumbles, you know,
Right.
doing that. But anyway, I hope that kind of answered your question on the actual horse and the way, you know, they utilize the animals and things.
Sure. I mean, and you also have a real wolf, right?
Yeah, the wolves were a very, you know, sacred animal. They believed that wolf had intuition. And the story is, with the wolf, I have 3 actually. 2 of them are in the high 90 percentile, and then my male is full blood. And he's a therapy animal. We take him to schools for educational purposes. We take him to nursing homes. He's a big sweetheart. We work on the street, take pictures with tourists. When we do events, you know, in living history, you know, we tell about the wolf. They were actually domesticated or tamed by, you know, a lot of the natives and used as pack animals before the horse came around. They were used for, you know, security purposes. They were sometimes even eaten, you know, the dogs and the animals were. But they were very important. Like they said, when Quanah surrendered, the story was when he was in the Palo Duro Canyon, wanted to know what to do. He got wounded in the last battle at the Adobe Walls, and they were hiding out in the Palo Duro Canyons, in the caves up there. And he was trying to figure out, because they were basically starving them out. They killed their horses. They weren't able to get out to get food. So to save his people, he surrendered. But when he finally got the sign to surrender, he said he was praying, and he seen an eagle flying above him, and that eagle kept tipping his wings towards Oklahoma, towards the Lawton area, where they finally went in and surrendered at Fort Sill. also said he was standing there and he looked up and there was a wolf standing there looking at him, and that wolf turned around and went toward the direction of the Aladura Canyon, to the direction of Oklahoma, and he knew that wolf wanted him to follow him because life had changed.
Right.
And so they are very, very intuition. A wolf is they would follow that wolf, and they knew, if there was game ahead, that wolf knew if there was danger ahead, and, they would read the signs of the wolf and the different animals and stuff to know this.
That's
so
almost, don't mean to interrupt, but that's almost like that show, Dances with Wolves, right? I mean, have you seen that show?
Oh, yeah, many times. And the funny thing about that was, the actual movie was based on the Sioux, and, he was there. But the actual original book, was based on the Comanche. Yeah. And it was about the Comanche and not the Sioux. But when Kevin Costner bought the rights to the book, he decided he wanted to change up the storyline a little bit, and that's the way it went.
Okay.
There's been talk for years of them doing a Dance with the Wolves too, and they were going to actually go back to the original storyline. And my thinking on that storyline was the girl, Stanza Fist, or whatever her name was based on the Cynthia Ann Parker character, which wasn't a character, she was a real person.
Right.
She was taken captive at 9 years old, and she stayed with the Comanche for 27 years until she was recaptured by the white man.
Right. That was kind of an off-the-wall question there, but anyway, let's get back to you a little bit. What was when you go out to do your educational and live history with people? What do you bring?
Well, it depends kind of what they want. We have a teepee. It's not leather or not, hide. It is a canvas one, but it's a very old one. It's all smoked, and it's got tears in it. My poles are broke. Some of them, I don't have the paintings all over it, like a lot of the Hollywood, teepees displayed. Mine's just a straight canvas teepee. It's probably a little bigger than what the original teepees would have been when they were nomadic, because they needed it to be small and easy to travel with. So, they were probably in the neighborhood of 10 foot around and 6 foot tall. More like what your kid's teepee would be today. Mine's a 14-foot teepee, but I do set that up at times. We bring buffalo robes, our weapons, our bows and arrows, or spears, some rifles or pistols. I have buffalo skulls that show, what the buffalo skull would have actually looked like out on the prairie. We have skins, elk skins, and basically, it was a nomadic camp, so there wasn't a lot of the stuff in the summer, when they moved around a lot. It's not like the winter camp of the Stock Cheyenne or the Sioux, where you had all your, hides stretched out, or the Comanche camp. They was nomadic. They moved around a lot. And so they traveled very light. They might have their war shield, their bows and arrows, their spear, a rifle that they either stole or traded for. We try to bring all that stuff, and we explain that. Usually when I do a talk, I never say this is exactly how it was, because we really don't know, because we weren't back there. And how many times maybe has that story been changed over the last 150 years? Right. To make it sound more dramatic, or to make it sound good, or whatever. Right. But we know the basics and what we've been told and what we've heard. And of course, a lot of times you have to use common sense. Did that really happen? Or could it have happened that way? A lot of times, no. But they were very, very cunning. They were known as the sign language for Comanche was the snake, was a backward snake, because the reason was them Comanches would travel. They'd never go in a straight line. They'd always crisscross, and they'd never ride